Hello, welcome back to my class, Introduction to English Literature. Today we will continue about intrinsic elements, part 1. In short fiction, you will begin paying carefully attention to elements such as plot, character, setting, point of view, style, tone, and language, symbol and allegory, and theme. The first is plot of the story. Plot of the story is how do events in the story relate to one another, what conflicts occur in the story. The second is character of the story. Character of the story is what are the most striking traits, how do the individual interact with one another, and what motivates them. The third is setting of the story. At what time period and in what geographic location does the action of the story occur? Maybe it happens in what place, and is the name of jalan or what else? And how does the setting affects the characters of the story? Setting of the story include time, maybe that, day, month, or years. The fourth is point of view of the story. It is what person or persons are telling the story. Is the story told in the first person, the language using I or we, or in the third person using he, she, or it? The fifth is style, tone, and language of the story. Does the writer make any unusual use or diction or syntax? Does the writer use imaginative figures of speech? The sixth is symbolism and allegory. Does the author use any object or ideas symbolically? What characters or objects in the story are part of an allegorical framework? The seventh is theme of the story. What is the central theme of the story? Now we will try to explain one by one about the intrinsic element. The first is plot. In plot, there are some stages. There are two stages. There are some plot. There is parallel plot or subplot. Parallel plot is generally tells two stories of equal importance, moving from one to the other and back again. And subplot tends to be secondary, often taking the form of a story told by a character within the story. There are 5 stages in plot. The first is exposition, second complication, crisis, falling action, and resolution. Exposition is the step or the stage that the writer tried to introduce the characters and the conflict, or maybe potential to be a conflict in the story. Complication is sometimes referred to as rising action, breaks the existing equilibrium, introduces the characters and the underlying or inciting conflict. The conflict is then developed gradually and intensified. Crisis, sometimes it also known as climax, is that moment at which the plot reaches its point of greatest emotional intensity. It is the turning point of the plot, directly precipitating its resolution. Next is falling action. Once the crisis or turning point has been reached, the tension subsides and the plot moves towards its appointed conclusion. The last is resolution. The final section of the plot is its resolution. Or sometimes maybe call it the ending. Conflict is the essential to plot. Without conflict, there is no plot. It is the opposition of forces which ties one incident to another and makes the plot move. Conflict is not merely limited to open arguments. There are 2 types of conflicts. The first is external. External is a struggle with a force outside oneself. The second is internal. Internal is a struggle within oneself. A person must make some decision, overcome pain, quiet their temper, and resist and argue. There are 4 kinds of conflict. The first is man versus man, or physical. The leading character struggles with his physical strength against other men, forces of nature or animals. Man versus circumstances is classical. The leading character struggles against fate, or the circumstances of life facing him or her. The third is man versus society or social. The leading character struggles against ideas, practices, or custom of other people. Fourth is man versus himself or herself. It is psychological. The leading character struggles with himself or herself, with his or her own soul, ideas of right or wrong, physical limitation, choices, and etc. Okay, that's the first explanation about intrinsic element part 1. We will continue to part 2 in the next meeting. Okay, so I just can say thank you and bye.